There are so many Easter eggs and references to outside media inside Guild Wars 2 that are always so incredibly fun to see. From incredibly obvious references to convoluted and hidden secrets, there are a wide variety to look at in the game. Today, I want to go across Guild Wars 2 and highlight my top 10 personal favorite Easter eggs and references within the game, so let's get started. In the number 10 spot is the Fawcett's bounty boat. This is a classic example and a reference that you see all the time, so I thought I would talk about it first, where it is actually such a common reference and is also something that has generally existed in media for a while, that it's not really a reference anymore. Anyways, most players who travel through the Wrathy Hinterlands should be familiar with Fawcett's bounty, as it is a big jumping puzzle that is really fun to play through. But as you make your way through to the end, you open up into a massive cave with a large body of water hosting a giant pirate ship. This is such an incredibly cool sight to see, and is also a really interesting one given the nature of the area we are in, but this is often attributed as a reference to the Goonies, where they find a boat in an area just like this. In the number 9 spot is Rue's grave. This is more of a subtle reference that is just really touching and a nice inclusion in the game. In the stronghold of Ebonhawke, you have the Defender's Field in the southeastern corner of the map. There are a lot of graves located here, and this is one of the primary monuments to the people of Ascalon. The most prominent grave located here is to none other than Gwyn Thackeray. But all throughout here are many more graves that you can interact with, including Rue's. Her grave is located on the second tier of this location on the easternmost end of this row of graves. It reads her name and that she lived from 1163 to 1175, making her 12 at the time of her death, which happened between the events of Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2. Additionally, the stone reads Our Little Songbird and Fly Now on Duena's Wings, with this being a reference to Rue from the Hunger Games, which is a piece of media that I personally like a lot, with Rue dying at the age of 12 in the games while being known as a songbird and being connected to the Mockingjay's wings. In the number 8 spot are community references, a general section to a bunch of random little things that we see all around the game that are a reference to different members of the Guild Wars 2 community. Siege Master Dolphy being a popular reference that many Guild Wars 2 veterans should remember as a reference to Dolphy and all of those guides from back in the day. The description of the Not Like This Again achievement is a funny reference to Loranity and her shenanigans with jumping up the Mad King's clock tower backwards, and other related challenges. We have the character of April, who I've talked about before being inspired by the real-life April from Extra Life 2022. In Firthside Vigil, you can find another thing I've talked a lot about with a stone tablet embedded into the ground with New Crichton that can be translated to the speech given after the world first Triple Trouble kill. Rory exists. And maybe one of the biggest is Snargle Goldclaw, who is a character who has been expanded upon a lot, who was originally a reference to the Commander Yes comments from Reddit. In the number 7 spot is the Triforge Pendant. This is a classic Easter egg that actually has multiple layers. This is an amulet that you can get in the game by combining an Emerald Pendant, Ruby Pendant, and Sapphire Pendant with a bunch of Mystic Crystals into the Mystic Forge. This sells for a lot on the trading post just because the items to make it are expensive, but don't usually sell for all that much. Where this entire item is a big reference to the Triforce from The Legend of Zelda. Also, fun fact, you can find this symbol around Beetleton as well, but there's a bit of a more obscure reference hidden in this item that the less players know about. The name Triforge isn't simply just changing Triforce to be a bit different, but is actually a reference to ArenaNet itself. ArenaNet being founded in 2000 by previous Blizzard employees who named the company as Triforge before it was changed to ArenaNet a couple of years later, all of which happened before the release of the original Guild Wars. In the number 6 spot are, in fact, references to ArenaNet in the game. With Guild Wars 2 being developed by ArenaNet, there are obviously lots of opportunities for them to add references in their own game. Continuing with the name idea we were just talking about, ArenaNet itself is believed to be a reference to BattleNet. BattleNet, in the modern day, often being associated with the overall gaming platform and launcher that Blizzard uses for its games and store. But BattleNet, back in the day, being a big deal within the gaming space that helped turn gaming into what we see it as today, like with the modern BattleNet. BattleNet, of course, having been partially developed by the original founders of ArenaNet. Then, throughout the game, you can find many references to many different ArenaNet employees, one of the most popular examples being the Norn Colin Johansson and Hobrak, who is a reference to Colin Johansson, who has served as the game director and studio director for Guild Wars 2 and ArenaNet. But beyond any characters, maybe the biggest reference to ArenaNet in the game can be found in the Blood Coast Ward of Lion's Arch. In both versions of Lion's Arch, but particularly in the older one. Here you can find a little arena with miniatures fighting, which is actually a bonus reference to Polymorph from the original Guild Wars. But the arena is made up of 2 red fences that resemble the logo for ArenaNet, and above this arena is a net, an arena net, if you will. In the number 5 spot are Bandito and Seraphette. This is a classic Easter egg that I feel like a decent amount of people will recognize, but a decent amount of people probably just completely gloss over. In the Hrathi hinterlands inside of Bone Rattler Caverns, you can find these 2 characters sitting and looking at the waterfall. You can chat with them to find that they are incredibly into each other, but one is a bandit and one is a seraph, so their lives together would be difficult. Which, completely ignoring this reference itself, this is actually a really interesting story idea within the game that accidentally adds a lot of nuance to Kryta and their problems with the bandits, because in lore, many of the bandits are just regular people who come from lives and have interacted with non-bandits before and during their time as being a bandit. But going back to the reference, this is a point-blank reference to Romeo and Juliet, a story that has been told many, many times, and now we get our own little version of it in Guild Wars 2. This is just a very traditional reference that I think you see in many video games and other forms of media that are always popular to see, but maybe a bit overused for some people. For me, I like it a lot, and I'm glad to see it in the game, plus it adds a bunch of flavor to this little part of Tyria. In the number 4 spot is with the Iron Forgeman. This is maybe one of the most popular references in Guild Wars 2 that players love to point out. The Iron Forgeman is the final boss of the story mode version of the Sorrow's Embrace dungeon, who is actually just really cool both from the design of the fight, but also the aesthetics of the boss. This fight also dates back to the original Guild Wars with a version of the Iron Forgeman found in that game. But upon fighting through the dungeon and defeating the boss, you get the iconic death scene where the Iron Forgeman will slowly fall into the lava, and as it submerges, it will give a thumbs up out of the lava, which this entire thing is a direct reference to the end of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, as the T-800 Terminator does the exact same thing at the end of the movie. In the number 3 spot are the Ebonhawke Chickens. Similar to the Iron Forgeman, this is a very popular reference that a good chunk of people know about, and I have highlighted it several times on my channel. Returning to the stronghold of Ebonhawke once again, you can head over to the farm area and find Wade Samuelson, a bunch of other NPCs, a bunch of crops and fun decorations, and a bunch of animals. The most important animal for us right now being the chickens who wander around this area and can be attacked. Should you want to decide for whatever reason that you want to attack the chickens, you can begin doing so, but may quickly encounter a bit of a resistance, because upon attacking the chickens, a swarm of angry chickens will appear and begin attacking you. If you are newer to the game or have less good gear, this can actually be a pretty overwhelming attack for you, and you may even die. But this entire thing is just hilarious to experience, and is of course a direct reference to The Legend of Zelda, with the chickens that will fight back. And the number 2 spot is the Lunar Wolf. This is honestly a crazy reference that I think a decent amount of people know about today because of how I highlighted it in a video a while ago. But the Lunar Wolf is a very special and unique mob that can only be summoned if 3 different rangers meet up with each other and use the Call of the Wild ability on their warhorn at the same time. The ability itself showing a cool image with a wolf howling at the moon, but by combining 3 of them together, a completely random mob known as the Lunar Wolf will appear. The wolf will follow you around for 15 seconds before disappearing, and doesn't do too much other than just exist. After a short cooldown, you can spawn it again, but you can also spawn it for each ranger that is present. This entire idea is just really cool to see, because having a unique mob that will only spawn by having 3 different characters using the same ability at the same time is just an incredible Easter egg. But on top of all that, this is a reference to the 3 Wolf Moon t-shirt and the meme that came from it, which inspired the Call of the Wild image as well. But now for the number 1 spot for my favorite Easter egg or reference in Guild Wars 2, and it just has to go to the Mesmer's Portal sound design. The Mesmer's Portal is one of the most iconic and well-known skills in all of Guild Wars 2, serving such a unique and useful purpose that allows mesmers to teleport players short distances. Useful in some combat situations, especially in PvP, but also useful in many other applications, like helping people through jumping puzzles and reaching tricky locations. Like with many skills and other aspects of Guild Wars 2, sound design is an important part of the game, and the portal has a very unique sound that most players should be familiar with. But that sound is significantly more interesting beyond how it sounds cool, because the sound itself is an Easter egg. In any sort of audio design for any application, there is a level of audio editing that goes into the production, and the work put into the portal is very special. If you take the audio and reverse it and slow it down a tiny bit, it sounds like this. For anyone with keen ears, you may recognize that it sounds similar to the Guild Wars 2 main theme, and it in fact is, but with another twist on it because it is a recording of a real-life music box that was being designed that would play the Guild Wars 2 theme when you used it. This was an idea for the collector's edition of Guild Wars 2, but never made it in, but fortunately it is immortalized in the game forevermore. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. There are quite a few Easter eggs and references in Guild Wars 2, and these are my personal favorites that really resonated with me. Please feel free to share your favorites down in the comments, because there are definitely a lot. I hope you all are taking great care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.